Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Thank you to Amy Christensen for inviting us on the stage and for her team in putting this together. My name is Amy Mattias. I am the Executive Director of the Sun Valley Institute for Resilience. We are a local place-based organization here working on building a resilient, vibrant, regional community focused through food systems transformation at this time. But today I'm here to moderate a panel discussion with 4 experts that are integrating natural resource management. And I'm going to ask us to think about natural resource management actually through the lens of earthly gifts. As we utilize these elemental forces, they are a gift to us humans, and as we deepen our relationship with them and reintegrate ourselves into the natural world, we are retelling a story that is as ancient as humans on this planet. We all had the pleasure of being together earlier this week on the land at Hope Rock Ranch, and we had discussions around rainmaking and land alchemy and water as the great integrator. So that helped to form our conversation today. First, we're going to hear from Wendy Pabich, who I lovingly call a water wonk. She is going to really briefly and succinctly teach us everything we need to know about the water cycles and the issues related to them. We'll then pass it over to Alejandro Carrillo, who's coming to us from Las Damas Cattle Ranch in the Chihuahuan Desert of Mexico, where he is utilizing adaptive land management practices to restore a small water cycle. And then we will hear from Wendy Millet, who is the land alchemist managing TomKat Ranch in Pescadero, California. She's going to talk to us about the principles and practices, the research that proves that we can do this as humans working with these earthly gifts. And then we'll pass it over to Annalyn Lavey, who is our co-host today, representing Integral Capital to reorient capital for resounding change. She's going to talk to us a little bit about her work at Hope Rock Ranch and how she's leveraging capital to transform the way that we interact with these earthly gifts and opportunities held in restoring our relationships with the world around us and with each other as human kin. So as we hear from these panelists, I think I'm behind on slides, but that's okay. As we hear from these panelists, as we move through today, throughout the forum, and in our life beyond today and this conference, I want us to keep a really critical question in mind. And that question is, are the solutions we pose harnessing nature in a way that honors the gifts that we as humans are privileged to steward? With that, I'm going to ask Wendy to take over the clicker and teach us a lot about water cycles in a really short amount of time.
Thank you, Amy. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay, so water is the universal solvent. It's considered the great integrator. It's a connector. It's an agent of transformation. As it moves through our systems, it picks up the chemical and biological signals of all that it touches. And so it's the modulator of temperature and climate, a store for carbon dioxide. It quenches our fires. It provides us food and water, and it is our lifeblood and the lifeblood of this planet. And so this is a picture of the global water cycle. So when we think about the large unfettered water systems of the globe, the large rivers, what we see is you have water coming from the atmosphere in precipitation as rain or snow, sleet, hail. And it starts its journey either on top of a glacier or a rock water tower or in a canopy of amazing trees or even as a rivulet. And it from there begins its journey through a watershed. And as I said, it's picking up everything that it meets. So it's interacting with organic nutrients from plants and animals, inorganic nutrients from soils and sediments and rocks. And it moves its way through the watershed, and it brings this whole alchemical soup, ultimately delivers it to the sea. And so in some of these great river systems, we see that it brings it to the sea, and it becomes the base of the food chain. So we get phytoplankton growing there, which ultimately support the entire marine food web, all the way up to the great whales. And then some portion of the water that makes it to the ocean again evaporates off, and it starts this whole cycle again. And so you can see from this image, we have precipitation and then capture by by plants and vegetation and soils. Infiltration into soils is why soils are so important. So if the soils are not healthy, they're not going to allow for infiltration. That water percolates through into the groundwater and so into an aquifer, which acts as a storage and slowly transports that water to a receiving water body, to a river, and ultimately back to the sea. And so when we inhibit our soils, we also get a lot more runoff. So this whole system is powered by the sun. The sun is powering this and powering evapotranspiration. And so this whole thing is this ongoing biological pump. And we as humans have intervened in every single one of those changes in state and those fluxes. And in doing so, we are seeing all the whole list of attendant problems that we were talking about this week. They're all connected to this water cycle. So we're impacting the global biogeochemical cycles, nitrogen, carbon, all through this water cycle. So, yeah. So then we talk about the large water cycles, but then there's the small water cycle, which is about accounts for some 40 to 50% of the sort of movement on the planet. And that has to do with water evaporating in a cycle that's sort of a closed loop and stays within that same terrestrial system. And that's critically important to this entire question, because when we disrupt those small water cycles, which we have done tremendously by devegetating, removing forests, removing cover, and compacting our soils, eroding our soils, we disrupt that small water system. And so it's agriculture accounts for 70 to 80% of the globe's water use. It's utilizes 38% of our land mass. And so it's a major contributor to this problem, but it's also a place where we can make some significant change. And so Alejandro, who we talk about as the rainmaker, we're going to hand it over to Alejandro to speak about the small water cycle and what we can do to enhance our practices and build healthy soils and healthy microbes and plants and animals.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you listen to me? Yeah? Well, I'm a cattle rancher in the Chihuahuan Desert. We only get like between 6 and 8 inches per year. And a bit amazing to be here in Sun Valley. A bit too warm for me and too smoky. And we're gonna see how the water affects those two things. And I was surprised because you're getting temperatures that are hotter than the Chihuahuan Desert. First of all, what we've been able to achieve in the desert is we're getting extra 20% water than the other ranches in the region. It's pretty cool. And that's a picture that was taken in our area, where the ranch on the left is actually getting more rain than the ranch on the right, and all the ranches under Regen holistic management are getting extra rain, which is really nice. This is in my ranch, and this is what used to be our former winters. Not much for the cows to eat, a lot of reflection, a lot of hot, no green grasses. These are current winters. After a few years of working grazing management, we've been able to get the grasses back without seeding, without mechanical, without fertilizing, just creating the conditions for the grasses to actually come up through livestock. Imagine these two pictures. My neighbor, my place, same precipitation, same grass. I mean, the right side is my place. I didn't use paintbrush, so don't worry. So it's pretty amazing, the transformation, you know. And then association of pictures here, like we started there in summer 2015, bare ground. Then, well, I think we skipped that one. Well, yep, sorry. Then summer 2020, then we established the grasses there. So one thing that is very important on this approach is to actually be patient, because we are used to immediate gratification, and we're always trying to find shortcuts And then we think that we're going to solve a lot of things with technology, but this is all about biology. This is all about having a green plant, feeding the microbiology, and that microbiology creating the aggregation so we can infiltrate the water. Going back here, Sun Valley, fires, right? We've been experiencing these days with a lot of smoke. What is a relationship between fire and the water cycle? Everything, folks. This is a nice study done by the NASA in California. Look at this graph. Where the drier the soil, the more fires we get. So we as ranchers, how we fix this? Well, through livestock as well, because grasses are really great at fixing the water cycle. So it's not that we're preventing the fires from eating all the grass. We are actually preventing the fires from fixing the water cycle, retaining more moisture, and then creating an environment that will not be inviting to fires. Another great benefit of what we do is the diversity has been exploded, incredible, at all the ranches. And this is a really great quote, folks. From 1930s, remember Dust Bowl about that area? Don't pray for rain if you don't know what to do with it. What is the point of us sitting in the clouds, let's say here in this area, to get more rain if our soils are compacted? You know what's going to happen? We're going to have a lot of runoff. So we need to work from the ground up with a green plant. I mean, like I see the hills here. All the hills here are so browny. I mean, you should have green, you should have, instead of that cheap grass that we call it, like all this brown, we should have your hills with green grasses. But we need to bring the biology that the soil needs through livestock. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Wendy, you might have to skip a few slides, I think. Okay.
Definitely. Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Millet. I'm from TomKat Ranch, and I do presentations a lot featuring Alejandro's ranch, so it's really fun to be on a panel here because I love sharing the stories of hope that we can restore landscapes with livestock. And we always say it's the how, not the cow. It's how you manage the livestock. Is that me? Sorry. And so just going to give you a couple flips around the globe. Les Plateau in China, that was very degraded landscape. It's become a healthy, thriving landscape. It's millions of acres. South Africa, similar fence line shot during the grazing season, but you see the vegetation on the one side where they've done a holistic grazing program versus not. Livestock can be a problem, but livestock can be a huge part of the solution, and the food that comes off of that is important for many people in the world who actually rely on proteins for their livelihood, for their diet. North Dakota, another example. We've been to these ranches. This ranch, they're sequestering a ton more carbon, making their land able to hold a lot more water, and all of it is through building soil, through using the livestock. In our ranch, we have grass-fed beef. We have also goats. It could be sheep. It could be a range of livestock, but they're managed in a certain way. So there's 6 core principles we follow as holistic managers, and it's all about the soil, keeping it covered, keeping a living root, a whole bunch of photosynthesis, a whole bunch of it's based on the genius of photosynthesis. And the plant is nature's miracle, best technology ever created. There's a lot of catastrophes out in the world, and other approach to managing these lands in a way that does bring back life to these lands is the passion that we have at TomKat Ranch. We think that the solution can be managing lands with livestock for a multiple of benefits. We call them co-benefits. So it's food, and it's a secure food. It's water, it's nutrients, it's community benefit, it's biodiversity, and have to go fast. So these are our 3 programs. Check it out on the website. We have Point Blue Conservation Sciences, our scientists. We're restoring the energy cycle. We've increased native perennial grasses on all of our 70 of 75 of our pastures since we changed our grazing program from a more industrial conventional model to a holistic management model. Some people call it regenerative, some people call it holistic. And we've increased the resilience, and that is a word I'll want to leave you with. We need to make our landscapes resilient. And all of us on the panel, we've gotten to see ranches around the world that are doing this. It's happening all over the place. We're also an unsung group of people because the industrial model for how we raise food in our world, both crops and livestock, is the dominant paradigm, and we are the alternative paradigm and the creative paradigm. So if you're not aware of who those folks are in your neighborhood, look out for them, support them through your food procurement, and looking at ways to think about the soil and all of the work that you do, and of thinking about the way that we have this compounding interest when we invest in the soil. We get the water, we get the nutrients, we get the food, we get community, and we get nutrient density of food. So if you haven't thought about that, like the nutrient density of your soil directly impacts the nutrient density of our food. This whole conversation about gut biome and soil biome, they're very intricately connected, and we're just cracking the surface of the knowledge that we will ultimately, hopefully have that makes all of this come together for us. So economic stability, I think I'll just pass it off here.
Okay. I think going back to the last conversation on the stage and this whole climate change, and people close their eyes and very few people pictured people. And you heard a lot of this conversation about these natural resources, these earthly gifts of water, land, soil, microbes, plants. But without humans as stewards of this, we can only do so much. So I'm really excited for Annalyn to talk to us about her work and how she's talking to the next generation and influencing that of land stewards, changing the way that capital transforms and moves throughout the system too. So
I'm going to ask you, Wendy, to speak a little bit to this slide before I jump in.
Okay, sure, yeah. This slide. Oh, yeah, thank you. So, right, sorry. So this slide is a slide that we looked at is if you had 1 million acres, we looked at the US, but you could do this anywhere in the globe, and you looked at the difference between an industrial conventional practice or ranch doing industrial conventional practices and compared it to what you could accomplish for your water, for your biodiversity, for your carbon in a regenerative system, what would be possible? So you can read the numbers better than I can because I don't have my glasses on. But the goal is we could really make a difference for all the things that all of us in this room care about. Some people really care about biodiversity and saving the species. Some people really are focused on the climate change. Well, they're all very connected. And so they all come from this health of the land. And 1 million acres was a number to shoot for here in this slide. And I'm going to hand it over there.
Thank you, Wendy. My name is Annalyn Lavey, and I have a lot of feedback. I am going to take a step back because we didn't talk about anything practical of how we get water in the ground. I have been on a journey as an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur and just trying to pick up any tool I can to participate in what the world is trying to show us naturally. And the tool that I have picked up most recently is the hoof of a cow. I have had the honor of returning to Las Damas Ranch. The names in that guest book melt my heart. I think to find a solution that I can stand behind has been very challenging. And now I get to play with finance. So I didn't feel confident to do that until I saw something that was worthwhile. And I've been sitting in boardrooms on the 56th Street of New York, on the 26th floor, which Riani can attest, I do not like being that high up, and discussing detoxing from the millisecond and how their grandchildren will eat. And that is not the way I want to call the next generation and each other into this work. It is not out of shame. It is not out of blame. It is out of intrinsic motivation. There was a conversation in this room and in the Catalytic Capital roundtable we had, and we're going to continue that conversation, that really got me, and it was about timing. Do we have the tools? Do we need new tools? Do we have the time? And I don't have a lot of time, but I am going to use it. When you don't have a lot of time, I'm going to use it to pause and thank every single one of you, and really thank the land that we stand on, because land is the largest asset class. It trumps every other asset class, and it is every single solution that we need. And we are its antennas, just as the plants are its emotion. And we need to listen to it. And it can show us the way. So I'm not going to produce and talk about a financial model, but I have been challenged to give a quick one. That might work. But I do want to thank Wendy Millet for calling me in to sharing that we don't need another model. We don't need another research institute. But what we do need is a neighbor's farm who's doing it that doesn't say to you, I don't have the money. This is not a money problem. So role modeling is what we are doing in Camas County. The role modeling how to do this as a neighbor and dreaming about what this looks like. And so what is safe? Safe is not 1 million acres. In the Snake River Basin, if we are going to be safe, we are going to have to dream bigger. If the tipping point, the social tipping point is 10%, I don't know what the natural tipping point is, but let's call it 10. The Snake River Basin, which is desertifying, it is the northernmost point of New Spain, is 77.7 million acres. And so we need 8 million acres in this method of regenerating and infiltrating soil yesterday. And we can't do it in a disruptive way because we depend on it. So how do we do that? We need to, scalability is not the word I use, it's repeatability. We need things that others can repeat, and we need to do them quickly. And so at Hope Rock, we are trying to, this is my objective as a finance member of a family office and institution that manages 13 different asset class. It's creating a legacy of regenerating degraded land in a way that benefits many, not just a few. And that is a challenging thing to do. We are 3 years into this. These are the time scales that I use. We have a common denominator of time, but a financial model that has eroded our soil health and our ability to implement these practices. But we have found that patient capital oriented for ecosystems and equity, you cannot separate those two, plus resilient operators that are role modeling something that is repeatable is what we need to figure out how to finance. And for example, getting maintenance back into our development model will help. We cannot extract that. So the capital that it is going to do this work is going to reorient to create value versus extract value. And I am excited to kind of continue the conversation with you all and here on stage.
Thank you, Annalyn, and thank you to all the panelists. I think hopefully the audience today heard a through line as these folks with deep relationship with the world, with deep land management practices. The line here is that we are part of nature and we can harness our power, right, with low-tech solutions that are already here, that have been here for millennia, to create fundamental change that will address all of the issues that we face today at a global and local scale throughout. I'll just open it up if we have a few minutes. I tried to have a few minutes left over for any panelists to jump in and give last words, thoughts, things that came up that you want to make sure the audience hears today.
I'll say a couple words to follow on what you just said. You know, I've been trained as a biogeochemist and a hydrologist, but in an engineering program, and I I really don't think we can engineer our way out of this. This is about people. This is about relationships. This is about listening to the planet. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Alejandro, any famous last words for the stage?
I think the beautiful thing that what we do is that the work is done, is to be seen. We're not planning, we're not just figuring out. It's already there, and we can duplicate it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I think I'll add, I'm always hearing about industrial agriculture as the problem of climate, and very few people break it down to that there is industrial agriculture and there is a different kind of agriculture that people here are aware of and that we're excited to share about with you, because we think it's the kind of agriculture you will be excited about. It's the kind of food you will want to eat, and the kind of practices you will want to support. So please be aware of that in the conversations that you're having, and reach out to any of us if we can be helpful. We love to host people at TomKat Ranch. Kat Taylor, our owner, is here in the audience, and the visionary genius behind our work. So you can talk to us and her team as well here. And we love to host people to show you. I'm sure Alejandro would add you to the guest book as well. It's really important to us to share it. And if you don't get out on the land to see it, it's hard to believe. Honestly, it's just hard to believe how quickly these lands will turn around.
Thank you for that invitation. Annalyn?
Yeah.
I'm going to quote someone who's in the audience who made me pick up a book, that absentee ownership will no longer serve us. And we need to get involved, every one of us, every last one of us. The model, we are blessed in this country to have philanthropy, but philanthropy is about 5% of the capital that we have to work with. And we need 100% of that capital to be doing this work. So I look forward to continuing the conversation about how to create aggregates to let that capital flow, both financial and human. And yeah, I am grateful to be on the stage with you all and in conversation with all of you in the audience.
Wonderful, thank you. So as I'm sure most people that are on the stage throughout this conference feel like we could talk about what we do for hours, please come and talk to us for hours about what we do. We will be at lunch, we'll be at the reception, we're available, you can reach out to us. I think everyone here, maybe not so much Annalyn, but our three other panelists have active social media accounts that you can engage with. We want to talk to you all because in collaboration, in relationship is how we truly will influence this rippling out effect of the solutions that we really see driven by nature and harnessing nature. So please reach out. And if you don't reach out directly to us, you can reach out to Amy Christensen and her team, and she would be happy to connect you to each of us. So thank you. Appreciate it.